It's estimated that the COVID-19 vaccine saved up to 15 million lives worldwide during the pandemic. One of the main reasons the COVID vaccine was so successful is because some of it used mRNA technology. And let's not forget, in 2020, Donald Trump was touting the COVID vaccines and mRNA and Operation Warp Speed as among one of the greatest accomplishments of his first term. But this time around, Trump's Health and Human Services, led by anti-vaccine Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr., is walking its support of mRNA technology back. Last week, the FDA refused to review Moderna's application for an mRNA flu vaccine. Now, we'll get into the FDA's stated reasoning for that in a minute, but first let's talk about mRNA and how it works. Here's an animation that was created by UT Health Austin. The M stands for messenger, or messenger RNA, ribonucleic acid. It's a key molecule in our cells that's essential for biological function. Messenger RNA is a genetic material that our bodies use to deliver information to our cells. mRNA vaccines deliver instructions that tell our cells how to make specific proteins. We were first introduced to mRNA technology in the United States during the coronavirus pandemic. The mRNA vaccines essentially taught our bodies how to make proteins for the virus that caused COVID-19 without ever exposing us to the live virus itself. That then triggers an immune response, training your body to recognize and fight the virus later if and when we encounter the real thing. Very different from the way traditional vaccines, which typically introduce small protein fragments of the actual virus to spark immunity. As of right now, the standard commercially available flu shot, which I hope you got, does not use mRNA technology. But several drug companies, including Moderna, are in the development stages for mRNA flu shots. Scientific experts say mRNA vaccines are faster to manufacture, they're easier to update because of new genetic strains, when there are new genetic strains of the flu, which many say would be a game changer for these rough and deadly flu seasons like the one we're in now, where sometimes the vaccine doesn't fully address the strain of the flu because it's from the last year. Moderna says its new mRNA flu vaccine is more effective than past flu shots and just as safe. But the FDA refused to even review its application for approval for the mRNA flu shot. The FDA says Moderna's application did not contain a, quote, adequate and well-controlled clinical trial. The FDA is taking issue with the flu shot that was given to people 65 and older during the trial. This higher risk age group typically needs a higher dose flu shot. The FDA says the vaccine that Moderna gave the age group was not adequate. But Moderna says it ran the trial as discussed and agreed upon with FDA regulators, and that no one from the administration voiced any objection to their study until now.
That study that the FDA had agreed in writing was acceptable and that we had discussed with them prior to the submission was, to his eye, not appropriate, and they refused to even open the review. I think that's the part that we still can't quite understand. A scientific review of all of this data feels like the appropriate next step.
This is not the first setback for the very promising mRNA technology during Trump's second term. Last summer, the Department of Health and Human Services canceled funding for 22 different projects totaling $500 million to develop mRNA vaccines. And without citing any scientific evidence, HHS Secretary RFK Jr. claimed, quote, these vaccines failed to protect effectively against upper respiratory infections like COVID and flu. But research shows that mRNA technology is, in fact, very effective. A French study published in JAMA, the Journal of the American Medical Association, found that adults who received mRNA COVID vaccines had a 74% lower risk of death from severe COVID-19 and a 25% lower risk of all-cause mortality than those who remained unvaccinated. Okay, there's a lot to take in there, so we need an expert. And joining us is one of our favorite experts, Dr. Nahid Bhadillia, an infectious disease physician and founding director of the Center on Emerging Infectious Diseases at Boston University. She also served as a senior policy advisor for the White House's global COVID-19 response in 2022. Nahid, great to see you again. Thank you for being back with us.
Thanks, Ali. And that was a great explainer.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I think we all need to understand how this all works. What do you make of it? What do you make of the FDA's reasoning for refusing to review Moderna's application for this mRNA flu shot?
Yeah, I think it seems particularly capricious because reporting says that the CBER chief, Dr. Prasad, basically went over the heads of career scientists, partly because it is a big investment for companies like Moderna and others to put a trial together. This trial was 41,000 participants in 11 countries, right? So they always have these pre-submission counselings with the FDA. And up until even August 2025, the FDA had said, yes, please go ahead, submit. So for them to go through that, what happens in this situation is now they've followed the regulations and the guidance that's been laid out, which, by the way, other existing influenza vaccines on the market did the same types of study trials. So this seems to be a way to discourage bringing these types of technologies to the market, which might have a great benefit because in this particular trial, the relative efficacy of the mRNA vaccine was about 27% higher than the standard flu vaccine.
Right. So I think there are two things that we're battling with here. The FDA has changed, or not the FDA, but the HHS has changed its recommendations of who can and can't get certain vaccines. That made it a little harder for some people to get COVID vaccines in some states. But that's a different story. The fact that it exists, a drug exists, and you have to make an informed decision about what to get with your doctor and how you access it is a different story from just simply not approving a study or moving forward with the research and approval of a drug.
It is, but I mean, right now the FDA, recommends influenza vaccine for everybody over 6 months. I mean, my concern is that this is another move to what they did with the COVID-19 vaccine last spring, which is they said they recommend it for everybody over the age of 65, but everybody else can just discuss it with their doctors. The flu is not. Yes, we're used to it every year, but it is not benign. This year, this week's FluView from CDC says that we've already had about 19,000 deaths, 300,000 hospitalizations, and over 2 million illnesses in this country from influenza. And last year was like a banner year for flu, where we had the highest number of hospitalizations in 15 years. So having any new technology that could even slightly reduce those kinds of disease and disease burden would be really, really helpful.
Yeah, it's a good point. When you're dealing with numbers of that size, even marginal increases, and by the way, this is not marginal, but even marginal increases make a difference. Right. One of the things about mRNA is it's not simply for upper respiratory diseases. It's shown promising developments in things like cancer. One study found that patients with advanced lung or skin cancer who received a COVID-19 mRNA vaccine within 100 days of starting immunotherapy drugs lived significantly longer than those who did not get the vaccine. And then there are, direct, not just COVID-19 mRNA vaccines, but there's this concept that this might be something that we use very directly for the treatment of other illnesses.
Yeah, you mentioned this in your intro. The reason why there's so much excitement about mRNA as a biotechnology advancement is that it is adaptable quickly to potentially new targets, particularly when infectious diseases are evolving. So before I talk about the non-infectious diseases stuff, it's scalable. You can quickly make a lot more of it. So particularly in pandemic settings or in emergency settings where you might have a new threat, even biodefense and biosecurity threats is really helpful. It is fast. You can get all of those products much faster. And potentially it might actually have a greater immune response than traditional technologies, which is why, at least for everything to do with infectious diseases, but also biodefense, it's important. In addition to that, it is promising for all these other autoimmune diseases, cancers. And so to use almost seems like a conspiracy theory based, assessments about the safety of this technology to then undermine our use of it more broadly only sets us behind as a country because the rest of the world, of course, is going to continue investing in it and making those products available to their citizens.
Nahid, great to see you again. Thank you for joining us. You make us all smarter. Dr. Nahid Badili is an infectious disease physician and the founding director of the Center on Emerging Infectious Diseases at Boston University. All right, still ahead. What I am about to say won't surprise